25th of October, Rabbi Lang, substitute for Rabbi Levitt, Gomorrah.
All right. So, today I wanted to focus on the last couple lines in the Gomorrah we read yesterday on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph.
First couple of lines on the bottom of the page, you mean?
No, from the Mishnah.
From the Mishnah.
The Amar Rabbi Chanina, about 2-3 lines up from the Mishnah. The Amar Rabbi Chanina, Gadol Amatsuva Osa, Mishayin Amatsuva Osa.
You're on Pei Zayin Amud Aleph,
Yes.
and you see a Mishnah. Here's the Mishnah. Okay, I see the Mishnah. Where's the Mishnah on this page? Not on this page, it's on the next page. So the Mishnah is Zeh Chomer Ba'adam Bishor. Oh, me Bishor.
Yeah, a few lines up from that. The Amar Rabbi Chanina.
Okay, let's see. Amar Rabbi Chanina, I see it.
I figured today, instead of starting a new Mishnah, which is maybe better to start with somebody else, I just want to discuss this last part of the Gomorrah, where he discusses, he says a famous idea. You want to read, Roy, the Amar Rabbi Chanina?
Sorry, where is it, Luke?
It's on 87A1 on the right-hand column.
87.
87A1, right-hand column. And it's on the right, from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines up.
Was it what? Hanina, Ada.
said.
Is that it? There was taught another Baraisa, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, right?
No, Rabbi Chanina.
87A1.
Correct. Right-hand column.
Oh, I'm looking at the left-hand column. Right-hand column is Rabbi Chanina.
Toward the bottom of the middle of the last one.
1, 2, yeah, all right then. All right. So it's what Vahashta Rashamit Lahem de Ravi Chanina. But now that you heard this from Rabbi Chanina,
Yes.
Exactly.
Dama Rafi Chanina, Rabbi Chanina, for Rabbi Chanina said, Godal Hamatzavi Hamatzva V'aseh, one who is commanded, hang on, sorry, one who is commanded, use this to help me. Right, well, the one who is commanded to perform a precept and performs it is greater. Mime sha'anu mitzuvev v'aseh, than one who is not commanded to perform a precept and does perform it. Ein Rama li ein halacha Rabbi Yehuda, and if someone tells me that the halacha does not accord with the view of Rabbi Yehuda, Avadina Yoma Tova Ravanon. I would make a holiday for the rabbis. Ma'ama, what is the reason? Techi Vipakatino Ace Li Anera Tofi. Because when I'm commanded, I have more reward.
Okay, so basically, as mentioned before, we're discussing a blind person, is he obligated in mitzvahs or not? Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that he's not obligated in mitzvahs. Originally, Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Yosef, who was blind, he said, originally I would have thought it's people who say the halachas like Rabbi Yehuda, I'd be very happy. I'd be so happy. I'd make a party for the rabbis because I wouldn't be obligated to do the mitzvahs, and yet Rabbi Yosef did do the mitzvahs. So, and then he heard Rabbi Chanina said, greater is one who is commanded and does it than one who's not commanded and does it. So he was happy. He wanted to hear that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, that he would be obligated in the mitzvahs. So a lot of times when you analyze Gomorrah, you want to know what was the Havamina and what was the Maskan. I mean, what was the original thought? Why is there a svara that someone who is not obligated gets greater reward and someone who is obligated would get less reward? And then it flips. And at the end of the Gomorrah, which seems to be the conclusion of the Gomorrah, you get more reward for being commanded and doing it. I was wondering if anybody had thought about that. Alan, do you have any thoughts about that?
Okay, at note 11, one who is obligated to perform a mitzvah is more worried and anxious lest he not perform it than one who is not obligated, for the latter has nothing to lose, since he may simply ignore the mitzvah if he wishes. Also, since the obligated person performs the mitzvah despite much pressure and opposition from the Yetzer Hara, he is more praiseworthy. Tosfos to Kedushin 31a and Avodah Zorah 3a. See also Levitt. Alternatively, an obligated person, by definition, fulfills the king's decree upon him, whereas the non-obligated person does not. Hence, the obligated person performs an inherently greater act, according to the Ramban and Tos Harosh to Kedushin. So that's a good explanation.
So that would be an explanation of the conclusion of the Gemara. I believe that's I remember Tom and Kedushin that says something like that. But what about the Havamina of the Gemara? Why is the Gemara, when you analyze Gemara, you also want to know, it helps you understand the conclusion if you understand the original thought in the Gemara. Why is it that the original thought of the Gemara, what's the reason to assume that you get more reward for doing something voluntarily as opposed to being obligated to do it?
I think the reason for the difference between the Hava Amina and the final opinion has to do with the word gadol. Does it mean that one's greater? Does it mean that he is more praiseworthy? Or does it mean that he's more worthy of reward? Those are two different things. I would say that the Havamina is that he's more praiseworthy. because he's doing it, he's volunteering to do it. He's more dedicated. He's not obligated, but he's doing it anyway. But in terms of reward, it's obviously harder to do it when you're obligated. And that's the point of the footnote. It builds more character. So a person becomes greater through the character building process of doing something that he's obligated to do, as opposed to somebody who does something that he's not obligated to do and he doesn't build so much character.
What would be the conclusion of the Gemara?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What would be the conclusion of the Gemara according to that? Are you saying the Gemara changes its mind and the Gemara says, no, really, it's more praiseworthy? You're saying the conclusion of the Gemara, right? You're
Right.
saying it's right. So what was the Havamina? The original thought of the Gemara was that it's more praiseworthy to do something voluntarily.
Right.
Why? Why is it more praiseworthy? If it doesn't build character, you said in the conclusion it builds more character if you're obligated and you do it.
Right. It's the word gadol, greater. What does it mean that he's greater?
Yeah. So in the Havamina, what does it mean, Gadol? Gadol.
The Havamina says that he's more praiseworthy. It does not interested in the word gadol.
You would get less reward. I mean, the Gemara never changed about how much reward. The Gemara already knew from the beginning that you get more reward if you're mitzuva, if you're commanded, you're obligated to do it.
Right.
According to you, there's no real change in the Gemara. The Gemara is really stating two complementary facts. One is that you're more praiseworthy if you're not obligated and you do it, and you get more reward if you are obligated and you do it. Seems like the Gemara is changes its mind.
No, I don't think so. If you look at the wording, in the Hava Amina, it doesn't mention the word gadol. It just says, since I'm not commanded, and yet I do it anyway.
He doesn't use the words Amar of Yosef, Meresh Hava Amina. In the beginning, I would have thought. Hava Amina means I would have thought, meaning, and then it's going back and it's saying the Hashda, the Shams Leder Chanina, sounds like he's taking back what he said originally.
I'm sorry, I missed your point.
He says the words Miresh Hava Amina. A couple lines up from where we started. Amar of Yosef, Miresh Hava Amina, Man da Amar Halacha Krav Yehuda, da Amar Sumar Pater and Mitzvos Kavdina Yom Tav Rabbana. He used the words Miresh in the beginning. Miresh means in the beginning. Hava Amina, I would have thought. Sounds like I would have thought. When you say I would have thought, means I would have thought something, and now I thought something else. Now, once you tell me Rabbi Hanina's dictum, I'll learn something else now. I'll rearrange my thoughts, reconsider my thoughts.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It could be that he's saying the first thought was wrong, or it could be that he's saying the first thought was right, but I see now it's more important to be gadol.
That's what he's going back on. He's deliberating whether there was never any question that it's more praiseworthy to do something voluntarily, and it's harder, and you get more reward for doing something that builds character, where you're obligated and you still have to reinvent yourself and do it anyway. that never changed, meaning it's more praiseworthy. So what do you, let me define, and the Gemara, that's the Gemara is saying, and he is just deliberating which one is worthy of more celebration. Meaning he said, "Avidna yom hatav l'Rabbanan."
Correct.
What is the? That's a very nice shot. I really like what you're saying, Lou. It's a very nice shot because it's something which is a big chiddush you're saying, but it does actually fit into the words. But just to fix up your explanation a little bit, what does it mean? What's the difference between praiseworthy and getting more reward? Shouldn't someone who does something more praiseworthy get more reward?
No, you get reward for what you accomplish. You accomplish more when you're commanded. I mean, I don't really understand reward, to tell you the truth.
Well, it does say in Pirkei Avos, the fum sara agra, right? How hard it is. The reward is corresponding to the difficulty of what you had to do, right? So there's truth to what you're saying.
Right.
It's more difficult. Like Alan mentioned, it's more difficult to do it when you're commanded. Think about two people that grow up. One person grows up, Haredi or Yeshivish, and his whole life from the time he was 8, 9 years old, he's always been instructed. The only thing in your life that's important is learn Torah, and you have to go to yeshiva, learn Torah. And here in Israel, a lot of they don't teach other subjects, and you're just learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. You go to kollel, you get married, you go to kollel, you become a rebbe, you stay in learning your whole life. I mean, it's really not. It's almost like not fair, It's like, obviously most of you have been, very limited exposure to Judaism when you're growing up. And, when I was growing up, I was exposed to Judaism, but not in a positive way. So it's kind of not fair. I mean, I always ask this question. It's like almost not fair. How could someone be born into a Haredi family? They're born into a yeshivish family. The learning is so emphasized, and they're learning so many hours a day. Count up the amount of hours that someone who's born yeshivish or Haredi learns their whole lives versus someone who, didn't get into learning until later in their life. It's not fair almost, right? But I believe this Gomorrah is really giving part of the answer to that, is that it's actually harder for them to do it, even though they were told to learn, and they've been learning their whole life. They went from yeshiva to kollel to being a rebbe to being a rosh yeshiva, whatever they're doing with their lives, and they're learning so many Torahs. They're teaching Torah, they're learning Torah, they're disseminating Torah. They're their whole lives is based on avodas Hashem and getting closer to Hashem. But like Gemara is saying, it's harder. Mitzvah Osa is harder. If you're obligated, it's much harder. Because you have to reinvent yourself. Otherwise, if you don't reinvent yourself, if you don't take it from a different perspective than you were given, it's just called minhag avosei and miyadem. It's just basically you're just repeating what your parents taught you. It's not your own. It's just, it doesn't belong to you. So like Lou was saying, it's harder. You get more schar. The fum sara agra, you get more schar. You have to reinvent yourself. You have to make it your own. You have to make it your own Torah. Just to get back to the last point, I wanted to finish what you were thinking, Lou, is that it's praiseworthy. What do you mean by praiseworthy? It's praiseworthy someone who had no very little exposure to Torah and came to it themselves, or they weren't. So what does that mean? It's praiseworthy.
It means they have a greater commitment, because if you're doing it because you have to, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're committed to it. But if you're doing it voluntarily, it shows that you're committed. You're committed to Hashem. You're committed to serving Hashem. You're doing it because you want to, not because you have to. So that's praiseworthy.
So, but technically you're admitting that it would be easier to serve Hashem like that, right?
Yes.
It would be easier. So why was he so happy originally? He was so happy. He wasn't obligated in the mitzvahs, and he was doing it voluntarily. He's not getting as much reward. So what is he happy about?
He's happy because he felt that he was more praiseworthy. And therefore,
What does it get you being praiseworthy? What does it get you? Isn't the ultimate thing that we want is reward? For
I presume he wasn't aware of the second principle. As he said, now that, what does he say? He says, now that I heard Rabbi Hanina, I say,
I'm saying he didn't know about
I
the.
wouldn't necessarily agree with him. I'd say, being more praiseworthy is a nice thing, and being greater is a nice thing. They're both
What does
nice things.
praiseworthy mean? I don't understand what you mean by praiseworthy, meaning you're gonna get honor from people who are gonna honor you. They're gonna say what a great person this guy is. What does that word praiseworthy mean? I mean, what does it do for you?
It means that I'm doing it for I don't have an ulterior motive. I'm doing it for the sake of doing it. Lishma.
You get less reward. Very good. There you go. Okay. So that's now you're saying something else. You're saying that when you do it voluntarily, so it's a higher level, meaning, right? We always say that you shouldn't do mitzvahs for the reward. You should do mitzvahs to serve God. It says in Pirkei Avos, right, that you're supposed to shalom and us lakabo pras. You should do mitzvahs not with the intention to get a reward. You should do it lishma, like you're saying. So according to Lu, that's the explanation of the Gomorrah. The Gomorrah never really changed the course of what its thought was. It's just saying two different aspects. If you're someone who doing things voluntarily, so then it shows that you're doing it lishma. It shows that you're doing it at a higher level. You're doing it for God's purpose, and then he said, and he's saying something also that if you happen to be in a situation where you're obligated to do it and you do it anyway, that's also a good thing because you get more reward for it. Is that what you're saying?
No, if you're obligated to do it, then you're doing it because you're obligated.
He says that would make him happier. Or that would make me even happier. It made me even happier if I knew that I was getting more reward. If I knew that I was obligated and doing them anyway, I would be happier. He would make a party.
I don't think that's what he's saying. I think what he's saying is, I always knew I was not obligated. And I used to think that the fact that I was not obligated made it better for me because I was showing that I was doing it lishma. But then I found out from Rabbi Hanina that actually, if I was obligated, it would be superior for me, it'd be better for me, because I would be fighting against my Yetzer Hara, and I would get more reward for that effort.
So it's better, you're saying, doing lishma.
He realized that doing it lishma was not as powerful as doing it as an obligation.
What you say? It's better to do something lishma than to get reward.
I'm saying that according to Rabbi Hanina's principle, if you ended to do it, then you incur the battle of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is going to fight against you, and you have to fight back. And you're going to get more reward because it's more difficult, because you're fighting that Yetzer Hara. You're more worried, you're more anxious. You want to make sure you do it right. You're afraid you're going to make a mistake and you're not going to fulfill your obligation. If you're doing it voluntarily, you don't have those worries. It's whatever you do, you do.
So which one is greater?
The second is greater.
So you said the first one is great because it's the Shema.
Never said it was great. I don't like that word great.
But he thought it was great what he was. So you're saying people who do mitzvahs when they're not obligated is not a great thing according to the conclusion of the Gemara? It's not a good thing?
People who do mitzvahs when they are not obligated are praiseworthy, but they're not gadol. They're not great.
But you were saying that the reason you're praiseworthy is because you're doing it lishma, no?
Yes.
So wouldn't lishma be better than doing it for a reward?
No, because you said the greater the difficulty, the greater the reward.
I understand, but then we know there's a concept that the olam person should do things shelo lishma, shemitok shelo lishma, ba lishma. And it says in Pirkei Avos, it says, "Al tiyu ka'avadim ha'mishamshem esamarav ha'manatz kal pras, ela tiyu avadim mishamshem arav shalom manatz kal pras, ve'im morish shemayim aleichem." Or the Mishnah, one of the first Mishnah asked in Pirkei Avos, it says, the ideal way of serving God is not to do it for reward.
Well, I guess we have a conflict. If you do it because it's commanded, then, well, no, I take that back. It's not a conflict. If you do it because you're commanded, that does not preclude the possibility that you're doing it lishma. You could be doing both. You know you're commanded to do it, and you're not expecting to get any reward. Like, for example, learning Torah lishma. You know you're commanded to learn Torah, but you're not expecting to get a reward. You're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for fame. You're not doing it so that people will think you're a great guy. You're doing it because it's a mitzvah. You're doing it because it's what Hashem wants you to do, period. So you get both. You get the credit for doing something that you commanded, and you get the credit for doing something lishma. Now the question is, if you don't know you're commanded, and you learn Torah voluntarily, and therefore you're doing it lishma, is that better? Is that lishma better than the other lishma? I have no idea.
So you're saying there's two types of lishma. There's lishma when you're obligated and lishma when you're not obligated. And you're saying lishma when you're not obligated is not as great as doing a shelo lishma when you're obligated.
I'm glad you know what I'm saying, because I don't.
All right, listen, I'm going to tell you something interesting over here that I thought about, and that was Gomorrah. It's interesting. He says, "Avidna yoma tava la rabbanan," like he'll make a yom tov for the rabbanan. What's a yom tov? It sounds like a party. I don't know how the article translates it, but I would make a party for the rabbanan. What exactly is
a
article?
holiday for the rabbis?
Holidays usually, I guess you like. It's like you have like eat and drink, you have festive meals.
Yom Tova, Yom Tov.
Yom Tov, exactly. Yom Tov. What do you do on Yom Tov? That's the rest of the year. I mean, you celebrate. You celebrate with wine, basar v'yayin. Those are the things that make your simchas Yom Tov.
Right.
I would suggest that the maskana of the Gomorrah is that that Yom Tov Rabban is going to make a Yom Tov for the Rabbanan because of what you're saying over here. he realized that Gadol Mitzvah Osa Yoser Mishaena Mitzvah Osa. It's greater to do something when you're obligated to do it. So someone who's obligated to do mitzvos, right? They grow up like that. They're very serious people, like their whole life is very serious. The more into learning you are in Torah and mitzvos, it makes you a more serious person. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just makes you a more serious person. People who don't learn Torah, who are not from Jews, are not Shomer Torah mitzvos. They're more, I don't know, happy-go-lucky. They're not as serious people. And more, Nevid Hashem is you're supposed to be serious, supposed to be committed. That's precisely why he says, Avidna Yom Tov L'Rabbana. If I found out, I'm obligated to do it. So, I'm going to be too focused on getting a reward. I'm going to be too focused on getting, and we know that the ultimate level is not to do it for a reward. It's to do it that you should enjoy doing it. You should enjoy serving God. You should serve God with Ava. Avas Hashem is the higher level. That Mesilas Yesharim says, it's supposed to, not just because you get a reward, but that you love God. You love God and you want to do what makes God happy. Maybe that's why he's saying Avidni Yom Tov L'Rabbana, that I'll have a little levity, a little make a party. I'll make it into a party so that we can take our minds off of being so focused on just doing it for a reward, that we could, and that's ultimately the purpose of a Yom Tov. Yom Tov is celebrate, to make you happy, to Simchas Yom Tov, to make you happy on Yom Tov, to make you a little more lighthearted, so that you could enjoy Yom Tov, and you can bring you to a greater level of loving God, of Avas Hashem. That's what I would have said to explain this, and in the Havamina, I think along the lines of what Lou is saying is probably correct. Is that someone who serves God voluntarily, he's doing it lishma. He's not doing it for a reward. He doesn't have to do it. I mean, obviously, he might know about the reward. You get the reward, but when you bring something do voluntarily, and you commit, that's more of like you're taking yourself and you're like bringing a korban to Hashem. You're like taking whatever your old ways are, and you're sacrificing that completely just to serve God and to have a higher level of Hashem. And that's originally what he thought. He thought that was the best thing to do, is to do it lishma, and to continue to do that, to make a party about it, to continue on that spirit of being joyous and happy and loving the direction your life is going in. But then he found out that it's harder, it's harder to do it. He's not saying one is better than the other. Both. He's saying that really it's better to do it lishma, as originally he thought. And then he found out that if he's obligated to do it, so then he has to do it in a way that'll be lishma. Then he'd make Yom Tov L'Rabbana. He would make it he would celebrate it. He would do it in a way which would bring an element of lishma into his observance of the mitzvahs. That's why the Gomorrah, it's a weird thing. The Gomorrah could have just said, Mireshav, originally I thought it's better to do mitzvahs without being obligated. Then when I heard Rabbi Chanina, I was happy that I'm obligated in mitzvahs. It's a weird language. Kavidna Yom Tov L'Rabbana. Why is he mentioned that you're going to make a party about it? I think that's part of the thing, because he wasn't going back on what he was saying. He knows the highest level is a shema, to do it out of love, to do it just to serve God. But sometimes when it's harder, when you're a Gadol Mitzvah Osa, because it's harder, so I'm focusing on reward. When I'm told to do it, when someone tells you to do something, it's not part of me. It's not coming from me. It's coming from the force. Like we talk about the onus, the compel, it's compel. Someone's compelling you to do something. You don't feel like it's coming from you. It doesn't feel part of you. It doesn't, and it's harder. It's harder to do it, and you're just doing it. Like the Gemara says, he's doing it to get reward. Makabel agra tfei. I'm getting agra tfei. So therefore, avida yom tov rabbanan. I would make a yom tov for the rabbanan in order that I should have a certain amount of lightheartedness and refocus it and make it more lishma, make it more personal, make it more enjoyable. So that it's not saying one is better than the other. It's just saying two different approaches, two sides of the same coin. So I would say.
Mm.
You like it, Lou?
No, I think you're making presumptions that are not correct. I don't agree that a person who's not born religious is happy-go-lucky compared to a person who is born religious. I don't think that's a valid assumption. I don't think that there's anything about the idea of the party is that he would celebrate. He'd be happy. He would make a feast. He would say, let's all get together and sit down and let's have a nice meal and be happy because I'm getting all this benefit. And then when I found out that wasn't the case, then I would still make a party if Rabbi Yehuda was wrong because I'd get more reward. So getting more reward is more important to him than doing it lishma. Or maybe he's saying lishma cancels out because you can do it lishma for a commandment, and you can do it lishma without a commandment. So either way, you can do it lishma. But then you get the extra
It
benefit.
says the Gemara says makabel agra tfei. It says the reason he's happy seemingly is because he gets more reward. That's what the Gemara says.
In the second case.
Yes, he said so. It seems that's greater than doing a lishma.
I'm saying maybe not. Maybe he's saying I can do it lishma in both cases.
You're saying
I can learn Torah lishma, even though I know I'm commanded to learn Torah. I can still learn it lishma, and I can learn it lo lishma, even though I know I'm commanded. The lishma is an
saying
independent.
the lishma was always understood. He wasn't saying you're not doing a lishma. It's saying there's the lishma where you don't get as much reward, and then there's the lishma where you get more reward.
No, I'm saying that the lishma is not a function of reward. Reward is a function of whether you're commanded or not. Since Rabbi Hanina taught him that he gets more reward if he's commanded, then he said, if I found out from Rabbi Yehuda that I was commanded, then I would be really happy because I get more. I know I'm getting more reward.
But he's also doing a lishma.
Right. Formerly, I thought I got more reward because I'm obviously doing it lishma.
All right, let's assume like you're saying. So why does it make sense to you that someone should get more reward? Because it's harder, like Tosa says, it's harder to do it when you're commanded to do it.
Right. So you get more reward because you have to fight against that Yetzer Hara.
Okay. I hear. It's a valid explanation. It's a good explanation.
Oh, by the way, I looked up the reference in. It doesn't say anything about women being more emotional. It says a person must always be wary of wronging his wife, since her tears come easily, wrongdoing is nearby. That's all it says. Nothing about emotion.
Her tears are nearby. Our closing coming.
Yeah, she might cry more quickly than a man, but that doesn't mean she's more emotional.
I mean, what causes someone to cry?
They get upset about something, and crying is a possible way to express that. But there are other ways to express it. You can get angry.
Well, most people would say that crying is an emotion. I mean, it's an emotion of either happiness or sad.
You can be more emotional by punching the wall than by crying.
But it is an emotion.
No, crying's not an emotion. Crying is a response to a situation.
Emotion.
Your husband comes home and he says, I can't believe you made this stinking soup again. I hate it. And she cries. Okay?
Sad.
Wife comes home and says to the husband, I can't believe you made this stinking soup again. I hate it. The husband goes and punches the wall. They're both emotional. Just have different ways of expressing it.
Says they shall cry more easily.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean she's more emotional.
When you punch a wall, so that, I mean, doesn't say that men have a proclivity to punch walls or for tears. Doesn't say men men have a proclivity for tears. It's less frequent that men are going to come to tears than women are going to come to tears.
Where does you
So
see
it's less
that?
frequent that men are going to punch a wall than women are
Where
going
do you
to.
see where do you see the statement that it's less frequent for men to come to tears than women to come to tears?
Monster Krova
What does that mean?
cries more easily.
That's not what it says. It says her tears are close by. Krova. Krova means close. Doesn't mean easy.
You're saying a man and a woman have equal emotions. Just a woman's emotions will cause her to cry more easily than a man's emotions.
Not even necessarily that. A woman may cry more easily because she's programmed to cry more easily. Women are taught when they're babies about things like crying, and men are taught when they're babies about things like crying. I was told when I was a kid, boys don't cry. I don't think my sister was ever told girls don't cry.
So you're saying it's a product of being taught one way or the other? I don't think I was ever taught that. I mean, I know my wife cries more than me. I mean,
Well, my wife doesn't cry more than me.
you cry?
Neither of us cry. Do I cry? Yeah, I cry sometimes.
You don't cry ever?
I cry sometimes at a sad movie.
Movie, all right. Your wife doesn't cry at a sad movie.
No, actually, she doesn't. I've never seen her cry in a sad movie.
Your wife is one of the exceptional people in the world who never cries.
No, not at all. She's just not programmed as strongly as many other people.
Do you believe human beings are robots programmed by you?
By me? Not
You're
by
the computer programmer, no?
Human beings are definitely robots. Absolutely.
Um,
Bahira is very, very focused.
Be careful what you say. I mean, that's not a good thing to be a robot. I mean,
It says in the Gomorrah that everything is decided, everything is in the hands of heaven except the fear of heaven. Meaning that we're
except your free will, exactly. Except your Shemayim. So a person who uses his free will, who uses free will in your Shemayim, that makes that person into a human being. That takes him out from being a robot. If you don't use your Yira Shemayim, that means you're a robot. You're right, 100%. We are programmed as robots. But if you do use your Shemayim, you do use your free choice, and you use it to the best of your ability, that transforms a person from being a robot into being a human being.
It says if a person is destined to draw blood, he'll be a moel, he'll be a doctor, he'll be a butcher, he'll be a murderer.
Right. But you have the choice whether to be a murderer or to be a
Whether
moel.
he's a Yira Shemayim or not, is going to be one of those four things. He's a
Right, but
robot.
wouldn't you agree that it's better that a person who's a Moel is Mekayim a mitzvah? A person who's a murderer, he's going to go to jail for his life, and he's also a Russia. I mean, it depends that you're a Shemayim, right? People have proclivity,
They're both
people have
robots.
talents. What?
They're both robots. They're both doing what they were programmed to do. He's not, the Moel is not a carpenter.
So you don't believe in things like Musser and working on yourself and perfecting your character. You think everything is programmed by God. There's no point in living. We're just robots anyway. Eat, drink, and be merry.
I wouldn't say exactly that way you said it. No.
So what's the point of life?
The point of life is to come close to Hashem.
Robots anyway. If God programmed us to become close to him, we'll become close to him. If he didn't program us, so they'll become Buddhists. I don't know.
No, the one thing that we do have free choice in is coming close to Hashem. That's what the Gomorrah says.
And that makes you human. If you
Everything
use
is
your
in the
free
hands
choice.
of heaven except the fear of heaven. What does that statement mean?
It means that you're right. We are robots, but if we perfect ourselves and we come close to Hashem, that can transform a person from being a human being to a robot.
He's
And that
still a
ultimately,
Moel. He's still a Moel.
that is the deciding factor of a person going to Olam Haba or not. Meaning, a person who uses his free choice to the best of his ability and makes good choices, he becomes a human being and he'll experience Olam Haba. Someone who just goes with the flow and does his robotical things his whole life and doesn't worry about using his free choice properly, he loses his status as a human being. And you're right, he becomes a robot and he breaks and he deconstructs and he self-deconstructs and he's left a heap of metal shards.
Rabbi, it was really nice meeting you.
Okay,
Thank you for teaching us.
right, thank you.
Nice teaching you.
Thank you. All
And
the best to you, Hatzlacha.
all the best. Thank you for the opportunity to teach you.
Take care.
Okay.
And sometimes
All the
also.
best. Everyone have a good day. Bye.
Look for your email with the link in it.
Okay. Take care. Bye.